Today, I'm going to be showing you how to replace the front brakes and rotors on a Chrysler 200. Start by putting the front of the car on jack stands and removing the wheel. Next, you're going to unbolt the caliper slide pin bolts. There's one on bottom and top. Most of the time they'll pull right out, but sometimes over time the grease in there will seize up and you'll have to twist them and pull them to get them out. With the slide pins removed, you should just be able to grab the caliper and wiggle it off the pads. Set the caliper in a spot that's not likely to fall. Next, you'll be removing the caliper bracket bolts, and these are sometimes a little bit tight, so get a big ratchet. Once the caliper bracket bolts are removed, the caliper bracket should just fall away from the rotor. Now, if you're replacing your rotors, you can be a little bit less careful with it, but I used a piece of wood here to knock the rotor loose from the hub. This rotor put up a little bit more of a fight where I had to hit the rotor and then spin it and hit the rotor and spin it and hit the rotor and spin it until it finally worked its way off the hub. I used a brake pad in between the hammer and the rotor to prevent from damaging the rotor, since I plan on reusing it and resurfacing it. So at this point, if you were using new rotors, which I recommend, you would be using degreaser or brake clean or something to go ahead and wipe down the outside of the rotor and remove all the grease that comes to prevent it from rusting. Once you get the rotor clean, you can go ahead and put the caliper bracket back on and reinstall the bolts. At this point, I'll go ahead and install the squeal sensors. These squeal sensors will go on one pad on each side, and the pad that has a squeal sensor will be on the inside of the rotor. Use this caliper grease to lubricate the ears on the pads, just the ears, so that they'll be able to slide in and out of the caliper bracket easily. If you don't lubricate the ears on the pads, it can often lead to them not releasing from the rotor properly and causing noise or uneven wear. Next, we'll be compressing the caliper piston. For this, I just used a big set of channel locks and squeezed them down. They also sell tools for this, and they make it much easier than using channel locks. With the caliper piston compressed, you should just be able to slide it back onto the brake pads easily. It's not super important right now, but it's a good idea just to make sure that your caliper and the slide pin holes line up pretty well. Now you'll take your slide pins and you'll clean them off and apply some new caliper grease to them to prevent the caliper from binding up in the same way we did to the pads. Lubricating the slide pins is one of the most important parts of a brake job just because it prevents the caliper from binding up and wearing the pads unevenly again. Once the slide pins are properly lubricated, go ahead and reinstall them and tighten them back up. At this point, with everything tightened, you'll notice that the rotor is still kind of loose, so what you want to do is put the wheel on and run the lug nuts down by hand, going in a crisscross pattern so that you don't warp the rotor. It's unfortunately pretty common that these get warped with improper tightening technique. With the wheel reinstalled and somewhat tight, go ahead and lower the car back down and give the wheel its final torque. So, if this video helped you out, let me know by leaving a like, and if you'd like to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.